Good morning from the Janiculum Hill. I am standing here with the Ossario behind me. I know for a lot of you coming for a 2 to 3 day visit to Rome, maybe it's your first time, you won't really have time to explore this wonderful Roman neighborhood. But maybe it's your second or third time visiting Rome, or you just like to explore those off the beaten path neighborhoods, or you've done a little research and decided that even if it is your first time in Rome, you want to stay someplace that's a little bit different. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you on a self-guided walking tour of Trastevere. So whether you're staying in the neighborhood or you just want to take some time to explore this beautiful neighborhood, I've got a lot in store for you. The neighborhood or rione of Trastevere is actually enormous, and so I won't be able to cover absolutely everything there is to see and do here, especially all of those proverbial hidden gems, but I have a lot to share with you. This neighborhood does not have any of those famous must-see sites such as the Colosseum, the Vatican, the Pantheon, etc. But this neighborhood is actually rich with history and beautiful architecture, streets, wonderful things to see and do, and places to eat. I've created a Google map with this walk, so you can check that out. It's linked in the description below. You can do some or all of this walk. You can break it up into different days because there really is so much to see here. One of the charms of Trastevere is that, a lot like Venice, you can just wander around, pick some little back street, check it out, look at some shops there, wander around some more, and basically just get lost. I want to share with you some of those really special things that I think you shouldn't miss when you visit Trastevere and give you just a little bit of history behind them. First of all, some of you may be saying, well, what is Trastevere? I've never heard of this. So Trastevere is a rione, or a neighborhood of Rome. And because this neighborhood is so special, the people who live here are called Trasteverini. Why is the neighborhood so special? First of all, it is incredibly historic. It goes way back to the days before the days of the Roman Republic. The word Tevere means Tiber, so Tiber River, and Trastevere means across the Tiber. You may have heard this neighborhood pronounced as Trastevere. In Italian, it's pronounced Trastevere. It doesn't matter. In ancient Rome, this area was inhabited by the Etruscans. Also, around this period, the area was inhabited by Jewish and Syrian merchants. Eventually, the area was incorporated into Rome under Emperor Augustus, and it became one of the rioni, or regions, of ancient Rome. There once was a Jewish community that thrived in this area, but that ended in 1555 when Pope Paul IV Carafa issued a papal bull that forced all of the Jews in Rome to move into the Jewish ghetto. But there are still some remnants of Jewish society here in Trastevere that I'm going to share with you. Another piece of history that this area is famous for is much more recent. Between 1849 and 1870, there was a movement to unify Italy. It was known as the Risorgimento. One of the most important players, one of the most famous, was Giuseppe Garibaldi. Today, obviously considered a hero, there is a piazza dedicated to him and a huge equestrian statue of him there. Many of that war's bloodiest and most famous battles were fought right here where I'm standing. And this is why this monument that you see behind me is here. This monument is called the Ossario, or Bone Repository. It has limited opening hours, but when it's open, you can go inside the monument and visit it. You can also head to the back of it and underneath and see the names of many of those who fought and died for the unification of Italy. The part that I'm standing on today is called the Janicolo, or Janiculum Hill. This is not one of the original 7 hills of Rome, but it is a huge hill that stands above Rome and from where you can get absolutely beautiful views of the city below. There is so much more to the Janicolo that it deserves its own video, but I wanted to start our walk here. To be honest, I started filming this video for you a couple days ago, and when I came up here to film, they were making a movie and they had Piazza Garibaldi and the big fountain completely blocked off, and I was unable to film there. But today I was able to film my walk up to the Janicolo. I was able to film quite a bit about the Janicolo and some of the history there, and of course Piazzale Garibaldi and the equestrian statue. I was also able to get over to the Fontanone, which is literally just behind me. Look, it's right there. See? It's just right there. So if you want to start your visit to Trastevere at Piazzale Garibaldi and really check out the Janicolo, learn a little bit about the history, come down and see the Fontanone before you come here, I'm going to show that in this next clip. So if you want to start your visit to Trastevere with Piazzale Garibaldi and the Fontanone, keep watching. Otherwise, you can use the chapters below to jump ahead. Just a quick stop to say that behind me is one of the premier luxury hotels in Rome. If you are looking for luxury, if you're looking for a hotel with a pool, this is one of the best options in the heart of Rome. So talk about peace and quiet. This is definitely one of those very little known places to visit in Rome, here on the Janiculum Hill. Literally every time I've come up here, I'm almost the only person here. Yes, the courtyard behind me is in a little bit of disrepair, but I love it. I even find the disrepair part of its charm. I just think it's so beautiful. This church, like so many in Rome, probably deserves its own video. There's so much to see in here. There's so many wonderful artists that have decorated the inside. But let's keep going on our walk to the top of the Janiculum Hill. One of the best things you can do with kids in Rome is to come up here on a weekend and see this wonderful old-fashioned puppet show. Another great thing to do, whether for yourself or with kids, is to come up here at noon every single day. They shoot a cannon from just underneath this wall. Anyone can come. You can even go down close to it. I warn you, it is really loud. So just noticing a few things about this statue. You can see the garland there. This one is made of bronze. But here, there's a fresh one, because just a few days ago, it was the 20th of September, which was an important date for the Risorgimento. I love bringing people up here to show them the views, but this is actually historically a very important place in recent Roman history. Here it says Roma o Morte, which means Rome or death. The men you see with the plumed hats in the middle of this statue, they are the bersaglieri, or sharpshooters. They are the ones who famously breached Porta Pia on the 20th of September in 1870, which led to the end of the Risorgimento and the unification of Italy. Victor Emmanuel II was the first king of a unified Italy, and you can see a statue of him in Piazza Venezia in the Complesso Vittoriano, or the Victorian complex, named for him. Finally, here you can see the commemoration of 20 Settembre, the 20th of September, 1870. If you want to see the Janiculum at its most beautiful, you should come up here at sunset. The sun would be behind us and you'd have beautiful sweeping views over Rome. Right now I'm here in the morning and the sun is facing me, so the views are a little washed out. It's still beautiful, but come up at sunset if you can. If you can start your visit to Trastevere from up here on the Janiculum Hill, I think it would make it a more complete visit to this beautiful rione. From here we're going to head back down towards the Fontanone. Another great reason to come to the Janiculum with kids is this old-fashioned carousel and arcade. Sometimes there's a guy over there with ponies and he gives pony rides to the kids. It's just a lovely place to bring a family. You can come up to the Janiculum Hill to Piazzale Giuseppe Garibaldi, where I just was, by taking a bus from the hospital near the Vatican down below. If you're up for it, I highly suggest the walk because the walk is really beautiful. It is a little strenuous, but there are some special things to see along the way, and the views start from about halfway up the walk. From here, everything is pretty much downhill. So the Fontana di Acqua Paola, or Fontanone as it's called in Roman dialect, which means the big fountain, is the fountain you see just behind me. This type of fountain is what's known as a monumental fountain because it marks the terminus of an aqueduct. Two other famous monumental fountains that we have in Rome include the Trevi Fountain and the Moses Fountain near Piazza della Repubblica. As you can see from the inscription above, the fountain was placed here under Pope Paul V, a Borghese. He raised funds to pay for the fountain by taxing the people of nearby Lake Bracciano. And that's why you see a reference to the word Bracciano in the inscription. Okay, coming back here to the Ossario, we're going to start our visit now down into the heart of Trastevere. Let's go. Just across from the Ossario, we have the beautiful church of San Pietro in Montorio. Before we head around to the front of the church and try to head inside, I wanted to show you this remnant here on the outside of the church. That is an original cannonball from the Risorgimento. It was lodged in the wall of this church and has remained here as a reminder to that historic event. This church is literally a treasure trove of beautiful art, including that chapel by Gian Lorenzo Bernini and this stunning painting by Antoniazzo Romano. Take a look at the ceiling of this chapel behind me. There's one more chapel I want to show you. It's the chapel you would see immediately on your right-hand side as soon as you enter the church. Sebastiano del Piombo was not a great artist. He just happened to be an artist because he was a man of his time. One of his best friends and mentors was Michelangelo, who created the designs for this chapel. Sebastiano del Piombo just painted over Michelangelo's designs. Well, you have no idea how lucky we are to be able to enter this church. So many times I've come up here and there's a wedding going on. And guess what? Right here next to this church is the Spanish Academy, and it holds one of the most important pieces of architecture from the Renaissance that we have here in Rome. You may have heard of the architect Donato Bramante. He was friends with Raffaello because they were both from Urbino. And it's said that there was something of a rivalry between him and Michelangelo. That is the topic of another video. Meanwhile, I want to tell you about what Donato Bramante did here on the Janiculum Hill. He created the Tempietto, one of the finest pieces of high Renaissance architecture. If the Spanish Academy is open, you can go in and visit it for free. If it's not, you can just see it from the gate. All right, from here we are going to head down into the bustling part of Trastevere. The views from the Janiculum Hill are really beautiful, but there's also an amazing view as you start coming down this staircase, and I think it's just as beautiful as the views from above. Off to the left over there, you can see Castel Sant'Angelo. As we move across to the right, you can see the Villa Medici, the top of the Spanish Steps. You can see the Quirinal Palace. You can see the Vittoriano over there, the Complesso Vittoriano. All the way off to the right, you can see the statues on top of the Basilica of San Giovanni. As I head down this staircase and into the bustling part of Trastevere, you're going to see quite a change in architecture and ambiance. Trastevere is home to several foreign universities, including John Cabot, the American University in Rome, and others. And so one thing to note about Trastevere is that it's kind of chock-a-block with college students. So if you're here looking for a little bit of nightlife, this is one of those areas that you might want to check out. And if you're thinking of Trastevere as a place to stay, and it certainly is a beautiful neighborhood to stay in, I would recommend staying in probably the quieter side of Trastevere, which I'm going to show you at the end of this video. First of all, you may have noticed so far that there are hardly any people where I've been walking. This is mid-September, one of the busiest seasons in Rome, and look how quiet it is. But as I've said, we're about to enter the hustling and bustling part of Trastevere, but on the way, I wanted to stop and show you one of these little hidden gems. This is the Hotel Donna Camilla Savelii, an ex-convent that was restored by Borromini. If I was visiting Rome and price was not an issue, this is where I would stay. The architecture is stunning. There's an amazing church on the inside most people have no idea is even there. There's a cloister garden on the inside of the hotel. It's beautifully designed and the location is wonderful if you don't mind being on this side of the river, a little far from some of the must-see sites in Rome, but definitely a beautiful area to stay in. I love taking people here and just going into the garden, having a little drink. It's just so peaceful and beautiful and feels like an oasis in Rome. So I took you left through the gate, which ordinarily wouldn't bring us to that part of Trastevere that everybody sort of has in mind, that sort of bustling part with all the little shops and restaurants. However, right here where I'm standing, we are at the crossroads of three really important and beautiful places to visit on this side of Trastevere. Just behind me is the Botanical Gardens of Rome. If you're looking for some peace and quiet, something different to do in Rome, perhaps something with kids, the Botanical Gardens offers a beautiful oasis here in Rome. And you can visit it year-round. At Christmas time, they do beautiful decorations inside. If you make it over here to the Botanical Gardens, do not miss a visit to this beautiful butterfly tent. It's amazing. Just next to me is the Galleria Corsini. It's actually part of the Palazzo Barberini Museum. I know some of you know what an amazing place it is to visit Palazzo Barberini. When you get that ticket, you'll see that it also allows you entrance to this museum. And in my opinion, it is worth going out of your way to come and visit this museum. But probably the most famous museum and famous place that you can visit for stunning art here in Trastevere is the Villa Farnesina. It was built by wealthy banker Agostino Chigi, and guess who decorated it? Mostly Raphael. If you love Renaissance art, I believe that you cannot miss a visit to Villa Farnesina. But now I'm going to take you back with me under the gate and we're going to go visit the heart of Trastevere. Trastevere is sort of famous for having lots of great places to eat and drink, but just like every neighborhood in Rome, there are some wonderful places and some not so wonderful places. You'll find a lot of mediocre food here in Trastevere. I'm here in Piazza San Giovanni della Malva. From here, I could either go over to Checco Il Carrettiere for a sit-down lunch at a real Roman trattoria, which I highly, highly recommend. Or I could head over here to Piazza Trilussa and go to Trapizzino for some quick Roman street food. in Piazza Trilussa. This is sort of the main site for nightlife, people hanging out here. If you come in the evening, this will be packed to the walls with people sitting around, drinking. But this piazza is actually historically important. Over here to my left, we have a statue of Trilussa, the poet for which this piazza is named. And just behind me, we have the little big fountain. So this correlates to the Fontanone high up on the Janiculum above. At this point, I'm going to take you with me down one of these quintessential Trastevere streets, Via del Moro. You can really take any of these streets and just wander around them, just follow them as a labyrinth, get lost, poke around and see what you find. But this street is really lovely, and it's going to take us to one of the places that I want to share with you in this video. One thing you may be noticing is how empty it is. As I said, I'm here in mid-September and Rome is packed to the gills. For example, one of the things you might be noticing is that some of these shops are closed because Trastevere really picks up in the afternoon and especially in the evening. So if you're exploring Trastevere at this hour of the day, you will find it peaceful and quiet, but you will find some of these shops and restaurants not quite open yet. One of the best places in Trastevere for street food or pizza by the slice is here at La Ranella. That's where I'm going to go. So I've opted for a little bit of pizza rossa and this beautiful focaccia con mortadella. Here we go. It's so delicious. I've talked about this in other videos, but one of the most important things that you can consider when it comes to eating pizza in Rome is how digestible the crust is. Whether or not you are full from what you just ate at La Ranella, do not miss a visit to Balzani. This pasticceria has been here since 1925, and the fixtures on the inside are the original ones. They specialize in cookies and chocolates, and if you're here at Easter or Christmas, you've got to come here. Right here in Piazza Sant'Apollonia, around the corner from one of the most beautiful and important sights to see in Trastevere, is this wonderful local restaurant called Osteria der Belli. Osteria der Belli specializes in fish, and it is wonderful. Everything's fresh and delicious. You'd think that it would be sort of touristy given its location, but it's really not. It's a very local restaurant. All right, now for the pièce de la résistance, even though I have way more things to show you in Trastevere, this is one of the most important and most beautiful. Let's go. So right now they're renovating the fountain. There's this big truck here that's a supplier for the restaurants in the area. But this piazza, especially if you come in the evenings, is absolutely stunning. Do not miss a visit to the inside of this beautiful church, Santa Maria in Trastevere. It is one of the oldest churches in Rome, and it is said to be the oldest church dedicated to Mary in Rome. A lot of what's really special about Trastevere are these ancient churches. And when I say ancient, I mean this church was made in the 4th century. Many churches in the area were also made around the same period. Of course, later they were built up, they were added on to. This church has more of a medieval and Renaissance feel about it, but the original church is from the 300s, from the 4th century. You should make a stop at Trastevere's quintessential bar, Bar San Callisto behind me. At the very least, just pop in for a coffee. It's an original. It's not open right now, but do not miss a visit to Otaleg Gelateria. It's one of the best gelateria here in Trastevere. Piazza San Cosimato is arguably the heart of Trastevere, or at least one of them. This neighborhood is so full of local piazzas, little streets, cafes, etc. Here you've got the market in the mornings, not on Sundays, and there's a little playground right here above me. There are lots of great places to eat and drink right around this piazza, and just on the other side of me is the hospital that I love to take people into. Yes, the hospital. It's part of the complex of San Cosimato Church, which is inside the hospital. And if you go inside, and you can, you'll see the most amazing medieval cloister. Anybody can go there. Just walk right in through where the ambulances come in and walk right into the cloister. It's absolutely stunning. Just beyond me over there is also Fata Morgana, another one of the wonderful gelateria here in Trastevere. Between Fata Morgana and Otaleg, I can't tell you which is better. They're both delicious, so maybe try them both and see for yourself. From here, I'm gonna head to my left and take you to another street where there are some amazing things to eat. Right as I turned the corner, I could smell Roberto's shop. The Antica Casciara here in Trastevere is a fixture. If you love cheese, you have to go inside just to smell the aromas in there. Of course, you can also go in and get some cheese to take home with you. They can vacuum seal it and you can bring it home with you. You can't bring meats home with you, but you can bring cheeses. They have to be hard cheeses and they must be vacuum sealed. Best of all, you can of course grab something to eat in here. They will make you a lovely panino out of whatever you choose from the selection of meats and cheeses that they have on offer. And the best part, Roberto himself, the owner, is usually on hand and you can ask to take a picture with him and he is happy to oblige. He's so sweet. Next stop, Supplì, some of the best pizza by the slice and Supplì in all of Rome. There's pretty much almost always a line here. There is nowhere to sit. You can stand outside and have your pizza, but it is totally worth it, I assure you. Trastevere can pretty much be broken up into 3 zones. I've already showed you the Janicolo, and I've just come from the busier section of Trastevere. Now we are in the 3rd zone. Although it's not entirely correct to say this part of Trastevere I like to think of as the medieval section. Of course, there's plenty of Trastevere that was around during the Middle Ages, but this is the part where we're going to see probably the most medieval architecture. I also think of this area of Trastevere as being the most full of churches, although again, that's not entirely true because the other areas of Trastevere that I've shown you are also full of churches. But there is a huge concentration here, and I'm just going to show you a few of my favorites that I think are maybe the most interesting. Finally, I think of this area of Trastevere as being the quietest. Certainly the Janicolo is also quiet, but it's just a little bit less convenient for reaching Rome city center than this part of Trastevere. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, if I was going to stay in Trastevere as a tourist, I would either stay in the Janicolo at that beautiful hotel I showed you, the Donna Camilla Savelii, or if price is no object, you could stay at the Villa Agrippina that I showed you also at the beginning of this video. Otherwise, I'd look for accommodation in this section just because, as you can see, it's the middle of a morning, it's kind of busy, there's traffic all around me, and yet it is still pretty quiet. Frankly, to share this part of Trastevere with you could be its own video. There is so much to see here. As I said, I'm just going to show you a very few of my favorite churches. Stay tuned because I think you're not going to want to miss these. And we'll start with this one right behind me. San Francesco a Ripa. The church is named for the famous St. Francis of Assisi, who stayed here when he passed through Rome. The interior of the church is simple but beautiful, and there are a few very interesting things to see inside. The first is a masterpiece by Gian Lorenzo Bernini, the funerary monument to Beata Ludovica Albertoni. This sculpture can be considered a precursor to Bernini's probably more famous Santa Teresa in Estasia, or Saint Teresa in Ecstasy. A couple of more interesting things to see in this church: the crypt of Giorgio di Chirico, and above the altar is where St. Francis actually slept when he stayed here. And if you ask at the sacristy, you may be able to visit it for just a few euros donation. I have so many more interesting things to show you, so let's keep going. hope you will not miss a visit to this amazing church, Santa Maria dell'Orto. That means St. Mary of the Garden. Not only is the church so much more beautiful than it seems from the outside, but it has these amazing little dedications to different types of workers that work in gardens and also making shoes. Behind me on this little alleyway here, there's a wonderful place to eat called La Gattabuia. It was recommended to me by my friend Max, who's a real Trasteverino. This is where you can find real cucina romana. It's a local restaurant and the food is excellent. Just around the corner from La Gattabuia is another restaurant that's sort of famous. All right, I'm here in the morning, so this restaurant is not yet open. This is a sort of famous restaurant because it's one of the few places you can come in Rome and listen to live music while you eat. Is it touristy? Yes, it is. Is the food good? Yes, it is. Just because a place is quote-unquote touristy does not mean it's a bad place to eat. It's a lot of fun to eat here. The music is very lively. It's also nice because you can eat outside, and it is a really, really beautiful environment in the evenings when this whole piazza is lit up with lanterns and you can see all these beautiful plants here. So I do recommend this as a fun place to eat, and the food is pretty good. It's not amazing, but if you want to listen to live music in a very suggestive environment, this is a great place to come. Book ahead. By the way, it is also a great place to accommodate a pretty large group. They have big communal tables. They also have a large space inside and outside. So if you have a big group of, say, 10 or more, this is a great option. See what I mean about medieval architecture here in Trastevere? I think this may be one of the most quintessential medieval structures in this neighborhood. Unfortunately, the church of Santa Cecilia behind me is under a bit of scaffolding, but it is really worth a visit. The basilica is named for Saint Cecilia, the patron saint of music. Why is it so worth visiting? Well, because of some of its hidden spots. The interior of the church looks a little bit modern, but that's because it's been redone so many times over the centuries. It's actually a very ancient church dedicated to Santa Cecilia, who supposedly lived on this spot. For just a few euros, you can go inside the sacristy and pay them to allow you to head downstairs underneath the church and see the Roman-era ruins of where Santa Cecilia once lived. There's also a much more modern crypt, but it's absolutely beautiful. The underground of this church alone makes it worth a visit. But there's more. Just behind me over there is a doorway that leads to the convent where the nuns live. You can ring the bell, and again, for a couple of euros, the nun will take you upstairs where you can see some of the most amazing frescoes by Pietro Cavallini. It doesn't take very long to visit this church, but I highly recommend it. I did just tell you about a couple of places to eat here on the other side of Santa Cecilia. This restaurant behind me is also a good option, Roma Sparita. You definitely have to book in advance. Their claim to fame is their cacio e pepe, which comes in a bowl that's made out of Parmigiano. Another one of my favorite churches here in Trastevere is Santa Maria in Cappella. It's also called Santa Francesca Romana, but there are other churches in Rome with that name, so I refer to this one as Santa Maria in Cappella. Guys, take a look. This beautiful crucifix was designed by Francesco Borromini. I recommend a visit to this church and the entire complex. It's actually a museum. It's very little known, and I think it's very special. All right, that was a little detour. I'm heading back to the intersection where I just was, and we're gonna keep going. Trastevere is the kind of place where you should always look up and all around you. Look what's behind me. Now is the part where I want to talk to you about places to eat in Trastevere. I've already been giving you some of my top favorites, but we're in an area where there are lots and lots of bars and restaurants. Many people say that when they eat in Trastevere, they want to have a local, authentic experience, and that they don't want to eat someplace touristy. Just because a place is touristy doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. For example, I talked about Dameo Pataka, which is pretty touristy, but it's actually really fun and the food is pretty good. And the ambiance is really special. They're not sponsoring me, I'm just sharing with you that I think it's a fun place to eat. You should know that it's not the place you go for the best food necessarily, but more for the ambiance and the experience. For me personally, I like to eat where the food is good and where I know that I'm going to be treated fairly as a patron, but I also know that you as a tourist, as a visitor, will also be treated fairly. I have no patience for those restaurants who take advantage of tourists and treat them differently than they do locals. All right, guys. I just have to say that just because some restaurants are written about by some food bloggers or some Instagrammers, no offense, but it just does not mean that they're necessarily good. Of course, as the saying goes, de gustibus non disputandum est, which means to each their own. With that being said, there are two restaurants right here near me that I cannot recommend. I'm not going to name them because I'm not in the habit of restaurant bashing or food bashing. If these are restaurants that you've been to and you like them, that's great. I just don't like the food there, and I especially don't like the way they treat tourists. And by that I mean adding a 10% service charge sort of randomly, or rushing people out, bringing them the bill before they've asked for the bill, these kinds of things. Finally, I don't know any Roman who is willing to stand in a long line to get into any restaurant. So if you see a long line in front of a restaurant, you can probably bet that that restaurant has been hyped on social media. This does not mean that it's a bad restaurant. I'm just saying that if you want to eat where the locals eat, these restaurants with the long lines out in front are not really it. And frankly, there are so many wonderful restaurants in Rome and in Trastevere where the locals eat and where you do not have to stand in long lines. So I recommend you check some of those out. I have a whole page on the RomeWise website all about the best places to eat in Trastevere. This page was made by me after years and years of eating here, but also with contributions from my Roman friends, from my Roman husband, and from my friend Max, who is a Trasteverino. I also have two dedicated pages, one about the best pizza in Trastevere and another about the best pasta in Trastevere. We're going to keep going because I have some really amazing things to show you. Some very special secret spots. Now this is someplace I highly recommend, Dateo. To eat here, you are going to need to book in advance. It's very good and it's very local. All right, we're going to go back to where I was just a moment ago and keep going on our tour. I've brought you down Vicolo dell'Atleta, which means the little street of the athlete. It's called that because on this street they once found an ancient sculpture of Apoxiomenos. The statue of Apoxiomenos is a Roman copy of a Greek original, and it shows an athlete who is using a sturgill to scrape the sweat and dirt off of his skin. Today, this beautiful sculpture can be seen in the Vatican museums, but this street is where it was found. And here's this little depiction of an athlete. But the street has something else that I want to show you. This stunning medieval ruin you see behind me is all that's left of a synagogue that was built here in the year 1100. Today it's actually part of a restaurant, but let's look up above. You can see some remnants of some Hebrew writing. We're not finished. I have some more secret spots to share with you. Don't miss this because they're going to be pretty amazing. Behind me, we have this medieval Arco dei Tolomei. So why did I bring you on this little detour to Piazza in Piscinula? First is this tiny little jewel of a church called San Benedetto in Piscinula, which I think is a must-see in Trastevere. of all is the ambiance and the beautiful architecture of this square. Third, I want to give a shout out to this coffee bar behind me in a neighborhood that is just full of super touristy places to eat and drink. This is not one of them. Head inside in the morning for a delicious coffee and amazing pastries. It is actually a pasticceria. They make their pastries on site. Come for lunch and try some of their delicious sandwiches made out of croissants or other things. Or come in the afternoon, it's also a wine bar. I think it is a lovely place to stop for refreshments here in Trastevere, and for me, it is high on my list of places to recommend. We're almost at the end of this self-guided walking tour of Trastevere, but I have a couple of other really amazing places to show you, so keep watching. No visit to Trastevere would be complete without a visit to this biscottificio. Biscottificio is a place that makes biscuits or cookies, and this place is historic. So guys, Stefania, the owner, she's always here. Just coming in here and smelling these aromas is amazing, but anything you get here is going to be delicious. They don't use animal fats. The food, everything is baked fresh. You can see them coming out from the bakery in the back. Guys, this little cookie here is called brutto ma buono, so it means it's ugly but it's delicious, and I can vouch for this. Stefania just gave me one, so let's check it out. Oh my god. It is so light. Crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside, absolutely delicious.
One al peso?
This pezzo 4 pieces.
All right, one more stop, and it's really special, so keep watching. Well guys, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've made a loop. Just to my left, if you kept walking, you would come to Piazza Santa Maria in Trastevere. Just behind me is the last church I want to share with you, San Crisogono. Like so many of the churches in Trastevere, it is an ancient church, and obviously, as you can see, it has been built up over the centuries. The church is worth visiting on its own, but what I think is really special about this church is visiting the underground. It's kind of strange. You have to look for the custodian and then ask him to take you underground. I think it's a couple of euros, 2 to 3 euros, and he'll take you underground. It is a huge space and not claustrophobic, but it is a little precarious going down that metal stairway. Guys, believe it or not, for as much as I've shown you in this video, we have barely scratched the surface of Trastevere. This beautiful rione, or neighborhood of Rome, is like a city within a city. I hope you've enjoyed this walking tour of Trastevere. If I've left off a piece of Trastevere or something that you wanted to know about and I didn't cover it, drop me a line in the comments below. I'll be glad to answer you. If you've enjoyed all of the churches that I shared with you in this video, don't miss my video all about 5 secret chapels you can visit in Rome.